this is Des from the Wellness Project. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Today, I am interviewing Melissa Rolfs. She is a certified holistic health and life coach. She helps busy women to break free from sugar and stress or emotional eating so they can be calm, confident, and at peace around food, around sugar, in stressful situations in their bodies, in their life. She's committed to empowering women to break free from dieting, emotional eating, and self image issues so they can ditch the diet mentality and feel empowered in their own skin. Melissa is the owner of Free to Be Coaching, and I am so excited to speak with her today because this is an issue for me. I am a stress eater, I'm an emotional eater. I stuff my face with junk food when I'm feeling stressed. I'll literally go to the kitchen and find anything sugary that I could stuff down my throat. So this has been a struggle for me. I have been trying to work on this and it's been really, really tough. So I'm excited to speak with Melissa about this. And I've also been trying to cut out sugar, which is also very difficult because it's just in everything. And I try not to have junk food in the house. But if you look at labels, which I'm not a label reader, I'm just not, I don't have the energy for that or the mind for it, though I really need to. I mean, sugar is just in everything. If you go in your cabinet right now and you pull something out, I bet that sugar is in it. So I'm really excited to speak with Melissa about all the tips she has for us today. And I'm really, really looking forward to this episode. And I think it's going to be really useful. So let's chat with Melissa. Hey everyone, I'm so excited. I'm here with Melissa Rolfs. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to speak with you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Desiree.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. So I love that you're all about holistic health and helping women with emotional eating, also known as stress eating, and decreasing sugar. So, first things first, how did you get onto this journey and why is this important to you?
Yeah, it was my story. And I don't think I realized, Desiree, that I was an emotional eater until probably just a few years ago, even after I had gone to school to get my health coaching certification. I think it was just something I had always grown up with. I remember being an 8-year-old little girl and hiding Pop-Tarts and candy and cookies in my room. And from a very young age, food had always kind of been a source of comfort to me. And so I don't think I realized it until just a few years ago what that was doing to me and the impact that that had on every area of life. So probably 10 years ago, I was a new mom. We had a newborn baby boy who wasn't sleeping, and we had a 2-year-old with some undiagnosed food allergies and some sensory things. My husband was traveling for work, and I was diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. So that journey really propelled me to look at what we were eating and the impact food had on mood and mental health and behavior for kids and everything. And that's really kind of what caused the corner to be turned. But that's why I'm so passionate, because it made such a difference for me. And I'm so like free, and I'm a different person, and I'm happy, and I'm more who I want to show up in the world as. And so I just want other people to know that they can be that way too. So that's a little bit of my story.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, for those who don't know, I mean, it's pretty common, but how do you define emotional or stress eating?
Yeah, I think for me, it was using food to stuff the feelings that I didn't know how to handle. I didn't want to handle. I didn't know what to do with them when they came up. So for me, instead of working through the emotions or the feelings and kind of working through them, I was trying to stuff them. And that was done for me via sugar. So I would use the sugar to kind of push those feelings down, thinking I wouldn't have to deal with them. But of course, it didn't make them go away.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm an emotional eater too. If I'm stressed or I'm upset, I do. I just stuff the chocolate in my mouth
Mhm.
and
Yes.
yeah. So why do you think it is that sugar and junk food comforts people?
Sugar is something that it releases the chemicals in the brain, the feel good chemicals, the dopamine. And so it's 8 times more addictive than cocaine. So I think in and of itself, sugar kind of creates that response, because when you have it, you want more in order to increase those dopamine centers in your brain. So I think sugar is addictive in itself. And I think that that's a part of it. And I think the other thing is that we look for foods that can give us comfort. And a lot of times there's a memory or there's something attached to it that we associate with comfort or happiness. I had a woman I worked with once, and for her, it was cheese and crackers. And we did a little digging and discovered that when her family was all together, when she was a child, they would have cheese and crackers. and everybody was peaceful and happy and just really enjoying themselves. And when she wasn't having that in her daily life, she would find herself defaulting to cheese and crackers for that feeling. So I think that's a little bit of how emotional eating can be defined as well.
Very interesting to think about. I never even thought about that food can actually be connected to a past time in your life or some memories. Yeah, that's true. So do you think that sugar can be emotionally and physically addictive then?
I do.
So that's really tough being so addictive and comforting and also have that connection to memories. So how do you help people get over that addiction and emotionally eat?
I would like to add too that it's also completely legally and socially acceptable and thrown out at children at parades, for crying out loud.
Oh gosh, that's so true. One thing I really struggle with is that I have no self-control when it comes to junk food, and
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
everywhere. When I go into work, there's cake
Yep.
and cookies and donuts, and it's really, really hard to avoid. And not even to mention, it's an additive in everything. I mean, it's in canned vegetables. I mean, it's in ketchup.
Ketchup.
It's so hard. It's in everything. And do you think that is intentional to make us addicted to food?
I personally do. I think it is.
So, I mean, it seems like it, right? And I know there are a lot of additives in chips. Like, the whole Pringles is once you pop, you just can't stop. I mean, they
Yes.
make the food addictive. So
Yes.
it's a
100%.
huge obstacle. It's so hard for people to overcome, and people are so unhealthy. We live these sedentary lifestyles. We're eating all this food. People are gaining a lot of weight, and it affects you emotionally, mentally, physically. So I mean, it feels like an uphill battle. But you are on the journey to tackle that and help people, which is amazing. So how do you do that?
I think this is the issue in this industry and in this space, Desiree, is I think so many times we tackle it the wrong way. Like everybody wants a program and they want a plan and they want to know how to lose weight and they'll try all of these things, but we haven't been taught how to change our habits, how to change our relationship with food, how to listen to our body. And so what I do is I do a lot of that inner work, that mindset work, to really help women understand what their body's saying and how to listen to it and how to honor their hunger and fullness and how to identify what they're really craving, because a lot of times we think it's food and it might be something missing in our lives. And so how do we decipher that, what our bodies are saying and what's happening in our lives, and really just kind of put it together and help women find that freedom?
That's great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of it is mindset then.
It is. And I think that's the missing piece in so many programs, is we've been led to believe that it's one size fits all and what works for one works for all. And my neighbor, had success on this plan, my husband, whatever. And then it doesn't work for us and we feel like we failed. And that's just not true. We haven't learned to listen to ourselves and what we need.
It sounds like you really individualize that to each client that you work with then. Okay.
100%. Because we're all unique. We have to honor our uniqueness.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And that sounds like it's the most effective way to overcome these huge obstacles.
We have things that make us want to reach for the sugar or the chips or the whatever. So how do we identify and navigate those triggers that could be tripping us up? And they're going to be different for everybody.
Oh, that's so true. Are there any very common triggers that you see with people that you work with or that you know of?
Stress. Usually it's stress and it's motherhood and it's life and it's work and it's wearing all these hats and feeling like you have to do all of these things and you're not measuring up because you're doing everything. And yeah, that's a lot of it.
And so if a client comes to you and they want to overcome their emotional stress eating, with the mindset piece, where do you start with that? How do you start digging into that mindset and identifying the triggers?
Yeah, well, the first step is to have a goal. Like, I love it when clients, we can identify a powerful why, because I think a lot of times we will say, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds so I can go to my class reunion. And that's great. Like, that's a good goal to have. But if we can dig a little bit deeper and understand the why behind the why and really understand what that having that will do for you and what that will mean for you, that's more likely to help you stick to what you desire when things get tough and when that stressful situation comes up and it triggers you to want a donut. You're going to have that connection of, no, I'm doing this because I want to have more energy. I want to be more productive at my job. I want to be happier in my life, whatever that is. that has a deeper meaning than, oh, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds. I've done this before. It didn't work. What's the point? I'll eat the donut and I'll try again tomorrow.
Right, right. So some people do get defeated with that.
For sure, for sure. And I think it's because it's not a powerful why. Like you have to know why you're doing something. Everything starts with why. And if you've got that powerful why, you're unstoppable.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any techniques that you teach people to do when they're craving the sugar?
Yeah, I do. And one of my favorites is to stop and get curious and just ask yourself, what am I looking for? Because a lot of times we just default, right? Like for me, when I was stressed and overwhelmed, I thought that the sugar would help me calm down, and it does for a moment. And then I crash because I'm riding the blood sugar roller coaster. But I think just asking yourself, what am I looking for, is really powerful because it might not even be a physical hunger that you have. And if you are not physically hungry and you're eating, that's not filling the void with what's going to satisfy.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And can you kind of give us an idea of what an unhealthy relationship with food looks like versus a healthy relationship with food looks like?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a great example because I used to just eat because it was there, it looked good, it smelled good, I wasn't hungry, but I had to eat it because I didn't know when I would eat it again. Like it was almost like this scarcity mentality of, I'm never going to eat this again, which there's always more food. Like that's not ever been a thing. So I think for me, it was using the food that way, but also using it to stuff the feelings, as I mentioned earlier, and not really nourishing my body. I wasn't using it for fuel. I wasn't honoring my hunger and fullness cues. I was just eating because there were feelings I didn't want to deal with. I was looking for maybe some stress relief. So, kind of using food in that way versus using food as fuel and nourishment, and recognizing that it can be a powerful medicine and that it can impact your moods and your energy and your mental brain clarity. Like there are so many benefits to food, but the key is to eat the right kind of foods for you and your body.
All right, great. Thank you for that. And so,
You
what
bet.
are some of the negative effects that food has on our mental health and emotional well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, my moods were very out of whack, and I attribute that to my blood sugar being off. I wasn't eating often enough. I was living off of sugar and carbs, and that makes you ride that blood sugar roller coaster, which impacts your moods. So I was very moody. I was very irritable. I was angry. I was agitated. Those are some effects of mood and food impact for sure. You can also have low energy. You can be lethargic. I've had a lot of clients who've said that they have had mental fogginess in the beginning, and then as we've worked together, it's gone away. So they become more clear in their thoughts. It's super powerful.
Okay. Oh, great. And are there any different effects that sugar in particular has on our mental health? Or is it just, junk food, kind of an unhealthy diet in general?
I can talk about what sugar does to our body. Like we know that it's not good for weight, but it also damages the organs. It's not good for our teeth. There are so many impacts that sugar has, and I've studied more of that than regular, not so good healthy foods. So could probably talk more to that. But I think anything that's processed or has chemicals or things that our bodies aren't used to, that makes them have to work harder. And so sugar is a great example too. It suppresses your immune system for, several hours after you've eaten it.
Okay, so I actually didn't know that. I saw that actually on your social media that sugar actually suppresses your immune system. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, it does. And it's crazy because if you think about it, what are a lot of breakfast cereals filled with?
Yeah,
Sugar,
sugar.
right? And then we send our kids into school for how many hours? And then we wonder why, maybe at the beginning of school, they're a little bit more sick than they normally are. Or when cold and flu season comes, they catch it. Like that's huge.
That's really interesting. I had no idea about that. So how can we avoid sugar then if it just seems to be in everything? Like what tips do you have for people that like me who wants to cut it out and I don't buy the donuts, the cookies, the cake. I can't, I give into the temptations when they're elsewhere, but I don't have them in the house. But
Good
then
girl.
it's just in everything in my house anyway that I don't intend for it to be.
I think the main thing, Desiree, is to really learn how to read a label and other words for sugar because there's so many names for sugar. Like it's
Really?
not just Like it's not just sugar or cane sugar. It can be high fructose corn syrup. It can be corn syrup. It can be sucralose. Like there are so many names. And I have a list I can share with you if that would help.
Oh, that would
But
be
if you
amazing.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, identify where the sugar is hiding and understand how to read that label, that's huge. That's, I think, a great first step because, like you and I said, it's in so many things. They've added it and it doesn't need to be there. So I think the key is reading that label and understanding where it is in the foods that you're eating. And then if you need to make some adjustments and some upgrades, maybe from there, you could do that.
Okay, yeah, that would be amazing. And I'll definitely include that in my show notes for sure. Do you have any hopes at all for the food industry to take sugar additives out of the products that they're selling to us?
I think if there were enough people that raised a ruckus, absolutely. We vote with our dollars, right? Like that's why they continue to produce what they produce is because they see what's popular, what's selling. So I think if we realize the impact that the food was having on our overall health as a society and we changed our buying patterns, I think that would make a big shift. Absolutely. I'd like to see that and food dyes. That's my other one.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's in everything too. It's in every drink, it's in all chips, everything. So,
Pickles, toothpaste. I mean, really?
so I didn't know that it was actually in products like that, like toothpaste, things like that. So they have food dye as well.
They do.
Really? Oh, wow. Yeah, I had no idea. And what are the effects that food dyes are having on our bodies and our emotional well-being?
It's predominantly just as a mom, I've seen it more on the emotional side, but it's not good for overall health at all. In fact, I have a graphic that I can pull up here that talks a little bit about that because it's not good for overall health. And I think that they actually outlawed them in the UK, I want to say,
I
and
think
I'm waiting for them
so.
to do that here.
I think I've heard that. And I know there's some connection between some of the dyes and ADHD and things like that, but I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, hyperactivity, various types of cancer, chromosomal damage, kidney and adrenal gland tumors, bladder and testes tumors, asthma. It's not good.
Wow. So clearly the research is out there. It's banned in other places. So why is it okay here? Why is our government and FDA like why are they allowing that in our food if the research is out there? And I think, like you said, maybe not a lot of people like us know about it, so there's not that ruckus, but clearly, scientists know of the effects that it's having on us.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I wondered that myself because they're very strategic in their marketing. Like as a parent, products that have those dyes in them are right at the kids' eye levels. And they're oftentimes at the checkout, which is when the parents are like, I want to go, I'm ready to get out. And they might give in to the kid because they want to get out of the store and they don't want to raise a ruckus because then they'll be judged. So I think they're very strategic with where and how they place things. So I don't know why they do that other than that they have an agenda that isn't maybe health.
Right.
Dare I
Okay.
say that?
Yeah, and it's really frustrating to know that we can't go to the store and just put things in our cart without reading every single label. And I'm not a label reader, and it's so much more effort. And I think it's a lot of effort that people don't want to take or put in the effort for or have the time to, I don't have kids, but you go to the grocery store with your kids and you're sitting there
Yep.
reading labels. I mean,
Yep.
that's hard.
Yeah. And it's exhausting. I mean, let's be honest. It's just
Yeah.
exhausting. And you might already be tired anyway from what you've been eating and stress of your day. And the last thing you want to do is go spend hours in the store reading labels.
Exactly, exactly. And it's like you said, it's hard. You go in there, if you're reading the labels, you're just trying to go home and then your kid's begging for food and maybe you don't even normally let them eat that kind of stuff, but they're begging for it. It's right at their eye level. It's easy for them to just grab and, put in the cart. It's tough and it feels really frustrating and kind of hopeless in a way that and you think about it too. I mean, there's all this fast food and I would say that probably most Americans aren't cooking dinner every night. It's a lot of fast food restaurants, takeout, Uber Eats, and it's just not healthy at
DoorDash.
all. Yes.
On that topic, do you know what really surprised me? Is why is it that during COVID, when everything was shut down, you could order McDonald's online? The drive-thru was shut, but they would still bring it out to your car. I don't understand that.
Yep. Oh yeah, McDonald's will never stop running.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like what?
Oh my gosh. And it's crazy too, because I travel a lot and I go to other countries and there's McDonald's and Burger King everywhere. I'll go to like a third world country and McDonald's is on the corner. I'm like on this dirt road. I'm like, what is going on? It's
That
everywhere.
is crazy.
It is. It's so like I'm in a near a jungle or something and there's McDonald's. I'm like, how is this possible? Why are you here? It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really bad. I feel like I always one of my wishes for the world was that there was no fast food because it's just so unhealthy. It's so bad. And it's a little off topic, but I saw a documentary that talked about that the meat that goes into the burgers and things, and it's like very bad quality. It's like the last it goes to restaurants and then it goes here and then it goes to fast food and prisons, then pet food, which a lot of pets are getting cancer because of the food that we're feeding them. So it's just very insidious.
Incredibly, incredibly. And if you really stop and think about all of it, it feels very discouraging.
It does feel that way. So I'm glad that you are somebody that's really helpful and you put all this information. Like I went on your Instagram and there's all these facts about you're really raising awareness. And I think that's so important.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I just think we're not aware. I wasn't aware before I realized any of this. I just thought that because it was at the store, it was safe, it was healthy, and I could eat it. I had no idea the impact any of it had.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that you know everything that you know, take me through like your grocery shopping list.
Gosh, I have to say, even before COVID was a thing, I was shopping online. Like I kind of knew what I wanted. We do a lot of nitrate-free meat because, nitrates aren't good for you either. So we do a lot of like whole foods. That's mainly what we eat are whole foods, clean, not all organic. We tend to follow the Clean 15, Dirty Dozen and kind of gauge it that way. It's a lot of whole foods, a lot of fruits, vegetables, nuts, grass-fed ground beef, ground turkey. We're
Okay.
kind of boring.
No,
We are
no,
gluten and dairy free too. So
okay, no, that's great. Are you dairy free for health reasons?
our daughter is the one who alerted us to the food intolerances. And so she got tested. And I'm like, you know what? This came from somewhere and it came from me. So the 3 out of 4 of us have issues with gluten and dairy. So we've just cut it out altogether for the most part. I mean, obviously we have it once in a while, but I would say probably 90% of the time we are.
Wow, okay, yeah, and I know gluten and dairy are something that's really rough on your body, and just those intolerances I think are coming out more and more because now more than ever I have friends that are all gluten free and dairy free.
Yeah, and thankfully it's so much easier now. Like when we started this probably 10 years ago, there weren't as many options and it didn't taste as good. Now it tastes just as good and people don't know. Like when we go somewhere and I bring something, they have no idea that it's gluten and dairy free, which I love.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm vegetarian and there's more
Okay.
options than ever now for, vegetarian. So that's really great. And I know somebody who's been vegetarian their whole life and recently like went vegan a few years ago and they said now more than ever, it's so much easier for her to be vegan. So that's really great. There's so many options now, which is nice.
There are, and they taste good. That's the great thing. Like people don't feel like they're deprived or they're missing out because they have this thing that tastes just as good. Sometimes it's even better.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't taste like that stereotypical, like how people think everything tastes like cardboard. It doesn't. Things
Right.
are actually taste good now. Yeah.
Because it used to. Back in the day, it did.
Right, right. So can you talk a little bit about the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen?
Yeah, so basically it's just a list of like these foods, and I don't even have them memorized. I have them on a card in my wallet. The Dirty Dozen, these are the foods that you should, get organic as often as possible because you're putting it right into your mouth. I think like an apple is on there because the apple is going right into your mouth. Now, the Clean 15, those are foods that you could do that didn't need to be organic, like a banana, anything in a peel that you're not putting directly into your mouth you can maybe have that not be organic because it's not as impactful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. Thank you for explaining that. How do you help people curb the emotional eating and like how long does that process take? Is there a set time or a set amount of sessions? Like how does that work if somebody wants to curb their emotional eating?
Yeah, I start off with a 12-week program for my clients. Sometimes the end of 12 weeks is enough for them. Sometimes more want to continue. I've had clients that have done both, so it really kind of depends on them. But I feel like 12 weeks is a really great amount of time to kind of retrain the brain, lay some new habits, and really kind of help them identify their triggers and find a new way of going forward. So that's a great baseline for sure.
Okay, great. And I know that there's some research out there that says that to get rid of a bad habit, it's easier to replace it with a healthy habit. Do you find that with the emotional eating as well?
I do, because I feel like if anytime you create a vacuum and you create that void, we want to fill it. So if you can take something away, it's good to have something healthy in its place to put so that you're not missing out. And that's why I don't do deprivation, because I feel like when we think we can't have something, we want it all the more. So it's really important to find a really high quality, healthy upgrade to substitute that with, to fill that void. You're not feeling deprived and you're less likely to go off the rails and kind of binge and maybe do some things that aren't in alignment with your goals.
Okay, great. And do you have any suggestions at all for those healthy alternatives?
I do. It all depends on what kind of the vice is. But for like sugar, I love coconut sugar. That is low glycemic, so it's going to help stabilize the blood sugar. That's a great swap in place of regular table sugar. Do that a lot. For chocolate, the Enjoy Life chocolate chips, they're dairy free. Those are amazing. If you're a crunchy person and you love that salty thing, Skinny Pop is a great choice. Veggie chips are a great choice. There's a brand called Off the Beaten Path. My kids like them. They're vegetables. Those are good. So it's all kind of figuring out what your palate is and finding something that you like.
Oh, great. Yeah, I like those suggestions a lot. I will definitely add those to the show notes for people as well, and I will check out those suggestions. That's great.
May even have a list too, if that would be helpful, of like, instead of this, try this. I think I do.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, if you could send that,
Okay.
I'll include that. Awesome. Yeah, that would
Okay.
be super
Awesome.
helpful because I think a lot of people don't know those healthy options or they don't
Right.
have the energy to research it or you start Googling and there's so much information, it's so hard to process. So I think that's super helpful to have those different charts and alternatives laid out there for people.
And then the information conflicts something that you just read 5 seconds ago. So then what do you do?
Yes. Yes, it's so true. There's so much conflicting information. So I think it's just easy for people to give up. It's hard.
Yeah.
So, as for the sugar, when people want to avoid sugar, I love that option for the coconut sugar. I didn't know that was a healthier alternative to sugar. That's great. So, as for trying to cut it out, what tips do you have for people? Like, if there are there certain brands that you like, or like what could people do to cut out sugar when it's like in your tomato sauce, it's in your ketchup, and you're reading the labels, but it's so hard. Like, what tips do you have for people to cut out sugar out of their lives?
Yeah, I think, as far as the ketchup goes, there is a brand, I think it's called Simple Truth. It's available at like Kroger, Fry's, but it doesn't have sugar added. So I think just again being mindful on the labels. But I think too, a lot of times if you have a sweet tooth, there are a couple of things that you can do to kind of identify what's going on. The first thing is to stay hydrated, because a lot of times we think we're actually hungry and we're actually dehydrated. So I like to encourage people to, if they have a craving, drink some water, sit for 5 minutes and see if the craving goes away. Because a lot of times it might be that we're needing hydration rather than sugar. So that's something people can do. I think the other thing they can do is they can maybe make some swaps in terms of what they eat, like spices like cinnamon, cardamom, turmeric. Those have a lot of flavor and a lot of sweetness, but they don't have the damaging effects that sugar has. And also fruits like apples and berries and figs are great. So that might be something to kind of play with instead. But I think, again, it just goes back to looking at the labels and understanding what the ingredients are and how they're impacting you.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that. That's really, really helpful. So, how can women cope with their emotions in a healthier way as opposed to eating that stress away?
I think the main thing, Desiree, is to have a safe space where you can share what you're really feeling authentically without being judged or criticized. And it's not social media.
Right. Oh, definitely not.
Just saying.
Yeah, that'll do more damage for sure.
Yeah.
And can we talk about mindful eating for a bit? What
Yeah. Yep.
exactly is mindful eating?
Yeah, I think mindful eating is being mindful of what you're eating and kind of where you're at when you're eating. Because I think a lot of times when we think of emotional eating or stress eating, it's kind of autopilot. It's kind of a habit. It's not something that we really think through. It's more like oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed. I need to grab the bag of chips, or I need to have some ice cream because I'm frazzled. And I think mindful eating is kind of taking a step back and being mindful of how you're feeling, what's going on in you, as well as in your environment, and asking if you're really physically hungry or if you're looking for something else.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. I've been trying to practice mindful eating lately, and it's hard. And my eyes are always bigger than my stomach, so I load up my plate. I just eat it, and it's hard to tell when I'm full. So I'm trying to slow down a bit and not get myself seconds yet. I'm trying to take breaks. So I've definitely been trying to practice mindful eating lately. So that's something I'm trying to pay more attention to.
Yeah, and it's not common at all. I mean, if you think about our society, we eat on the run, we're eating in the car, we're eating in front of a screen. We're not in touch with taking any of it in. You know what I mean? And if we could just give ourselves that space and that time and really kind of enjoy what we're eating, it sits differently.
Oh, definitely. We're always on the go, always in a rush. And I read somewhere that actually one of the most common reasons for car accidents is eating in the car. I've heard that somewhere. So,
See, that
yeah.
fast food gets us another way.
Yes, yes, it does. And there are countries that don't do takeout. Like that you have to sit at the restaurant to eat. They don't do to go. So it's very interesting. We definitely have a different way of life here.
We definitely do. We definitely do. And I don't think it's to anybody's benefit, to be honest with you.
No, but I think people are becoming more aware. There's people like you that are helping people to become more aware and educating them. There's more and more documentaries coming out. There's social media where people are spreading that information. And I think that we are going to see some changes in the next few years because people are, like you said, causing more of a ruckus. I think they are. I think people are being more outspoken about the food industry and what they're finding out. And there's a lot of, undercover people that go into these places and see what they're putting in our food, the additives, how they're treating the animals that they're selling us, and they're sick and everything. So I think that people are becoming more aware. And I think it's only a matter of time before the food industry is forced to change. And I know one thing that was really cool through COVID was more and more people were gardening and planting vegetables in their backyards. So that was really cool to see. I mean, we did it too. We have a little vegetable garden that's good. We haven't, produced anything yet, but things are growing. So I think a lot of people did that during COVID, which is really cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We tried. It didn't work. I got some beautiful sunflowers.
Oh, see, we tried to grow sunflowers and nothing grew, but we have like a little corn growing. So we'll see if that comes out and a
Nice.
little bell pepper.
Nice.
So we'll see how it goes. But I think that's something cool that came out of the quarantine is that more people got in touch with themselves and became a little bit more mindful of what they're putting in their bodies. And I know people even became aware that they were just sitting on the couch and just eating all day. And I saw a lot of posts with people saying that they recognized that and they were trying to change. So hopefully mindful eating, growing your own food, and forcing the food industry to take some responsibility and change is going to be in our future.
That would be awesome. And I think too, people really slowed down. Like, I think it was a really nice time for people to kind of pause and assess things. And I feel like it gave people a little bit more clarity on, maybe what they want going forward. They made some changes that they needed to make. And I think this busy lifestyle that we've kind of been programmed to believe is the end all be all, I think people realized, hey, maybe this isn't everything that I want.
Yeah, I fully agree. I've been seeing a lot of that on social media and a lot of people agreeing, which is nice. So I think a change is coming. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited for everything that you put out there. And I think that's amazing. So do you have any plans to make your free to be coaching grow and spread more awareness? Like what are your plans for your business?
Yeah, that's my goal. Like, I just want women to be free from the emotional eating, from the stress eating, from the sugar, because I think really underneath that is something deeper. I think that we feel like as women, we have to fit in a box or we have to be a certain way or we'll be labeled or judged or this or that or the other. And so a lot of times we feel like we need to shrink. But what if we could just be free to be our authentic selves and be loved and accepted and realize that we're worthy of that, regardless of what other people think?
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you so much for being on, Melissa. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. And can you tell everyone where to find you?
Of course. Thank you for having me. I love the conversation. You can find me on my website at free, the number two, the letter B, coaching.com. So free to be coaching.com.
Great. And I'm going to put all your links in the show notes, your link tree, your Instagram, everything. So I think it's great information that people need to know. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining me today. That was such a great conversation. I learned so much. Melissa told me about things that I had no idea about. And like we said, it feels so discouraging and hopeless sometimes, but I'm so glad that there are people like Melissa out there spreading the awareness. I'm going to put all of her links, like I said, in the show notes. So definitely check that out. Follow her on Instagram. She has tons of great advice. She has tons of great facts on there. I mean, I opened her Instagram and I learned things right away. So definitely follow her on social media and hopefully you can implement some of her tips into your life. I know I'm going to for sure. I learned a lot. And I learned a lot of really great tips that I'm excited to try out. So thank you so much, Melissa. I will see you guys next week with another amazing interview. Check the show notes. And if you want a free worksheet on how to live a more positive lifestyle, that is also in the show notes. So you could sign up for that. I will see you guys next week. I hope you have a wonderful week and a healthy week.